From Washington, Crossfire, the young and the restless. On the left, Tom Braden. On the right, Pat Buchanan. In the Crossfire, Jonathan Miller, Executive Director, College Democrat, Stockton Reeves, National Chairman, College Republican, and later, political impressionist Jim Morris. Good evening. Welcome to Crossfire. Buchanan says it's Bush 55, Dukakis 45, and he stands pat. But the polls don't show it. They're still inching up for Dukakis, inching now to within 6 points, counting likely voters only. Hoarse of voice and rumpled in appearance, Dukakis was in New York today, defining the inching as a surge. While Bush flailed away at the Massachusetts miracle, calling it the Massachusetts mess. You may not find anything amusing as this marathon goes into the last lap, but one of our guests, Jim Morris, does, and he'll show you why. But first, let's find out whether there's wisdom in youth. Pat?
Mr. Miller, you said in the pre-interview that we got to get rid of this militaristic mindset. Now, since the United States under Ronald Reagan is spending only 6% of gross national product on defense, where we used to spend 9% under Jack Kennedy, what the devil are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about spending money on programs that simply don't work. Number one, SDI. A number of scientists have showed that it's not going to be as effective as Ronald Reagan thinks it is, and yet we're spending billions and billions of dollars on it.
Mr. Miller, the Soviet Union has poured 200 billion rubles into strategic defense. They are outraged at the prospect of SDI. Why do you think it won't work when they're putting all that money into it? Something wrong with their thinking?
Well, I'm no expert on SDI. What I do look at is the scientists who are studying the issue. Now, Mike Dukakis, if elected president, is going to continue to research the SDI program, but he's not going to spend billions of dollars.
Why are you against a missile defense for the United States when right now the Soviet Union is putting missiles into Afghanistan, Scud missiles? The Syrians have missiles that are aimed at Israel. Israel's working on a missile defense. Why not a missile defense for your own country?
Mr. Buchanan, I'm not against a missile defense, and neither is Mike Dukakis. What I am against is the current program, the way it stands, and spending billions of dollars on it when it isn't going to work.
The answer, Pat, as you know, is that it doesn't work. And the scientists say so. Now, look, let me ask Stockton Reeves. You say you've gotten to know the Bush family pretty well, and you like the people around him. Now, tell me, in your course of your talks with Vice President Bush and his family, have you ever found out why he put General Noriega on the CIA payroll?
Mr. Braden, I don't work for the CIA. And quite frankly, I've never asked the Vice President about that.
You didn't?
I don't think it's an issue in this campaign.
Well,
I don't think it's an issue that people are concerned with. And
you don't think it's an issue people are concerned with?
No, sir, not in the polls.
I tended to get to disagree.
Well,
that may be a shock, but, you know, instead of sitting in Washington, I've traveled to 33 different states, spoken on 350 college campuses, and I think I know what's going on.
Mr. Miller,
Miller,
let me go on to Noriega.
Let me go on to Noriega.
Just a minute. Let me ask Mr. Stockton Reeves another question, because he says that he gets to know the Bush family pretty well. Now, in the course of knowing the family and getting to talk with the Vice President, Mr. Reeves, have you ever asked him, or did he volunteer, why he went to 17 meetings where the arms for the Ayatollah were discussed, and he can't remember anything about them? He can't even remember the outburst of Schultz and Weinberger. What has he told you about that?
Mr. Braden, we obviously didn't discuss things like that, and I think perhaps if you wanted the answer, you should ask him yourself.
Well, did you discuss just the flag?
No, sir, we discuss young people, why they're more conservative today than they were many years ago.
Take young people, Mr. Miller. Young people. The one group in America that supports Bush Quayle stronger than any other is young people, 18 to 34, 2 to 1. Why do you think that is so?
Well, I also want to make a point that if you look at 18 to 21-year-olds, the group that I represent and Stockton represents, in a New York Times poll, they're turning more Democrat than they were in 1984. But I tend to dismiss these polls as not as temporary things, and they're not going to last.
Let's go to your issue you raised.
This is surging right now.
Okay, there's no doubt there's a tightening here. But you mentioned in your pre-interview twice the key issue is student loans.
Exactly.
Why should kids 18 to 24 years old who are never going to go to college have to subsidize your education?
Well, I think we ought to be able to offer them the opportunity to have an education.
But, you know, look, 50% are going to college, 50% aren't. Your subsidized loan is going to be paid by kids who are never going to make as much money as you. Why should they do that?
I think Mike Dukakis looks at a society, and I look at the society where we can get nearly every college-age student into college. The reason why 50% don't go to college is because they can't afford it, and the Reagan-Bush administration has done its best effort to try to prevent any more from affording college.
Mr. Reeves.
Let Mr. Reeves respond.
I think that's horse hockey. I think more people are going to school. There are 14 million people attending college right now, including 2 million freshmen this year alone.
Well, it's
you can't tell me that people aren't going to school. There are more people going to school now
I'm not saying they're not going to school,
than they were 10 years ago.
You have to agree with me that the Reagan-Bush administration has been cutting the Pell Grants. They tried to cut the guaranteed student loan program.
Mr. Miller, didn't John Kennedy say, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country? What are you and Dukakis going to do for America rather than just the student loans for the folks at Harvard?
I wouldn't say that student loans is the only thing at all. I think Mike Dukakis is going to lead a progressive agenda, guaranteed health insurance. He's going to reduce the budget.
That's giving something to somebody. What are you going to ask of the American people?
Well, we're going to ask the American people to serve their country. Mike Dukakis has been a very prominent spokesperson at public service. He's had a literacy corps in Massachusetts that won the presidential award. He's going to be asking college students like myself to go out there, and he's been very encouraging of a program that College Democrats is doing on public service. In fact, his daughter, Kara Dukakis, and I think this is terrific that his family's involved with this, is the co-chair of Operation Hope, encouraging college students to go out into the communities and help them.
Mr. Reeves, you belong to the generation that's going to pay the bill. Now, George Bush has been specific about only one thing, read my lips. How are you going to pay for education? He says he's going to be the education president. How are you going to pay for child daycare centers? How are you going to pay for the savings and loan industry scandal? How are you going to pay for the defense scandal? That's all going to cost billions, and 37 cents of our tax dollar is already going to pay interest on the national debt. I want to know what you, as a young person, think about the mounting debt that you're going to have to pay for.
It's simple. I think the people, you've got to look at where the problem is. The problem is with Congress. The problem is with a democratically controlled Congress. How do you fix it? It's simple. The bottom line is elect a Republican Congress. I think Republicans are the people who have been and will make the hard choices. And I think that if people really want to change things, it's time to elect a Republican Congress.
Miller, let me give you my favorite issue, my hobby horse, is the American Civil Liberties Union. Now, we know they're in favor of some pretty kooky things. Even the Duke admits that, you know, legalizing child pornography, legalizing street solicitation of prostitution, getting rid of tax exemptions for churches and synagogues. That's all ridiculous. Why doesn't the Duke resign from that organization?
Well, I think he admires what they've been doing for years, what they representing the minority facts. Now, he doesn't agree with most of those things you're saying. And I don't know. I mean, I don't think we can blame Mike Dukakis for his membership in the ACLU as much as we can blame you for Watergate. I mean, that's ludicrous. You're bringing those two things together that just don't belong.
But he's a member, a card-carrying member of an organization which wants to legalize narcotics, and he's going to lead the war against narcotics. Why doesn't he resign, just like we get guys to resign from country clubs if they don't let in women?
Because he agrees with a lot of the things they have to say, not those things that you mentioned.
All right, let me ask Mr. Reeves one more question, because we're getting to the end here. Dan Quayle shocked all the women in this country when he answered the question of a little girl who said, suppose I'm 12 and I'm raped by my father, would you want me to carry that child to term, that baby to term? What's your answer to that question?
Mr. Braden, I faced that issue in August of this year. I had a young lady I knew from a state who had came to me in problem, and she said that she'd been raped by her boyfriend, okay?
Mm-hmm. That's different than rape by your
father. Sir, rape is rape, okay? I don't think there's a differentiation between the two. The only thing I could tell her, she cried on my shoulders for 2 hours. And at the end, I looked at her and I said, never having faced a situation and being put in that opportunity, I told her the greatest gift anybody on this earth can give anybody else, the gift of life. And I think that's just quite simply where it is. It's the gift of life.
George Bush would disagree with that. George Bush would give you the exemption to a woman.
It's not the baby's fault that it's there, but the baby has a right to be born.
It's incest.
Incest, I'm not talking about incest, I'm talking about the baby. Do you want to murder that baby, or do you want that baby to live?
So you disagree with George Bush's position on abortion?
I just said I disagree with abortion. I think the Vice President is moving to our point.
Okay,
I think he's coming over.
I think you've both done a terrific job under heavy fire, representing your point of view. And I hope we're friends after this, Mr. Miller. Good
Hey,
job.
congratulations.
Thank you. Good job. Good job. Thanks to Jonathan Miller, Executive Director of the College Democrats, Stockton Reeves, who's from Florida, National Chairman of the College Republicans. When we come back, some very, very special guests.